Porsche has always been a household name that everyone knows about, even those who aren't so familiar with cars. Everyone knows the name, but do we really know how Porsche was built? How it became so popular? Or how it became a legend? Well, on today's episode, we are doing a deep dive into every generation of Porsche, explaining how the brand ended up being one of the biggest and best car brands in modern history. So let's get started. Porsche's story goes as far back as the late 1940s, and it all started with a dream from a brilliant engineer, Ferdinand Porsche, the man who also designed the Volkswagen Beetle in 1930. But after all of the calamities that put his company in a lot of duress during World War II, he handed control over to his son, Ferry Porsche. And like that, he took it under his care to develop the first Porsche car in 1948 in a small sawmill in Austria. They named it the Porsche 356, and it was tagged as number 1. It was a marvel of a car at the time, as it was stylish, sleek, and a lightweight ride that's capable of producing high performance. It is powered by the 1.1-litre air-cooled engine, which was initially inspired by the Beetle car, but it was engineered to give an amazing driving experience. And there were only 52 units of this ride that were hand-built, but this was the foundation for more Porsche cars in the future. The 356 was the first Porsche, but it wasn't just a car, it was the start of something that will pass on to more and more generations. It was a good blend of brilliant engineering with a drive for the best performance. And with time, Porsche started releasing upgraded versions, like the 356A, that had better engine options. And before we knew it, it developed from being just road cars, and we started seeing them on the track. Only if he knew how much he'd achieve. So moving on, and as Porsche cars continued to develop, Porsche decided to go big and introduce the 911. In 1963, Porsche produced a car that ended up of significant importance and a ride that was adored by multiple car enthusiasts, even till this day. It was introduced at the Frankfurt Motor Show, and it was built as a clear upgrade to the 356. It came with a 2.0-litre air-cooled flat-6 engine, which produces 130 horsepower, and that was a very big number back in those days. This was a ride that was not just fast, but it was also agile, as the control and turning were amazing, and the style was out of this world. It had a rear-engine layout, so it had a feeling that other rides didn't have, and judging with all the specs, the engineers knew this was going to be a hit. This set the stage for years of excellence with Porsche. The 911 was a symbol and an icon, but the upgraded versions, the 911S, which could produce as high as 160 horsepower, and the RS 2.7, famous for its ducktail spoiler, a legendary design element still admired by enthusiasts today. But that's not the best of them all. In 1974, Porsche released the 911 Turbo, and ended up being a car that uses the 3.0-litre turbocharged engine that can release as high as 260 horsepower. But apart from that, it had a design that the world has never seen. But one thing that Porsche has always been known for is development, and there were many upgrades with the 911, which had it looking better and better. The 964 came out as the 911's second generation, and it introduced a modernized chassis and a new all-wheel drive system with the Carrera 4. It kept the original shape of the 911, as many loved it, but there were added features like ABS and power steering. The 964 Turbo used the 3.6-litre engine that delivered around 360 horsepower, which ensures that Porsche's original reputation of using high-quality technology and raw performance continues. Then after that, we saw the 993 come into limelight from 1994 to 1998, and it was referred to as the last air-cooled 912. It was loved for its sleek, flowing lines and head-turning design, which made it really stylish, and the fact that driving it was basically really fun. It was with the 993 Turbo that Porsche first introduced twin turbocharging in the 911 model, which delivered 408 horsepower and had an all-wheel drive system, which made it an absolute unit to drive. One cool fact that you should know is that Porsche wasn't only producing fine cars. At that point, Porsche had already claimed 19 victories at the 24 Hours of Le Mans, with cars that consistently dominated the track. This was the generation where the 996 came out, and this was where we first saw water-cooled engines, changing from the usual air-cooled tradition and headlights with Boxster that their fans are normally used to. But the 996 GT3 showed that Porsche hasn't fallen off, as it was a ride that was not only absolutely stunning, but was also a beast on the track as well. Not many could compete with this. The 997, which came between 2004 to 2012, won multiple awards and trophies with its stylish models like the 997 Turbo and the GT2 RS that could produce as high as 600 horsepower. These generations confirmed one thing that people already knew, and that was that Porsche cars are absolute bullets. And they can also be innovated without losing the original vibe that made people fall in love with them in the first place. After a while, Porsche later decided to embrace the hybrid culture and introduced the 997 GT3R Hybrid, a car that was an absolute peach of a ride that used an electrical flywheel system that allowed the car to move more efficiently and faster than the regular vehicles. It first took some time to get used to, but after a while, after seeing how useful it can be, and noticing the reduction in pit stops during track events, the hybrid went from a new design to being a glimpse into Porsche's future and what they can wanted for their brand, a good blend of efficiency, technology, and performance. Porsche continued to grow and expand, and with time, it has become a ride that is a symbol of affluence for car enthusiasts. If you own a Porsche in this current generation, you can call yourself one of the hottest shots around. There were many improvements on their previous models to make them more modernized and attractive to the current market. The 2012 to 2019 versions of the 911, for example, adapted to the modern era by adding a longer wheelbase and having electrical power steering, which was a great feat, seeing as it still retained its original 911 feeling. The 991.2 Turbo S can now go as high as 580 horsepower, which is a big improvement in terms of its performance, and the 911R became a collector's dream as it has a manual transmission system that people would love to have in their ranks. The current 992 is an absolute marvel of a car, which has all the technology needed for the tech guys, and some of their models are engineered to perform better than most cars. For example, the 992 GT3 RS can go as high as 518 horsepower, and it's also known for its aerodynamic wizardry. The current 911 also diversified into different models, including the 911 Dakar, which is an amazing off-road car that can be used if you want a completely different vibe from the usual race cars. That just shows that there's nowhere that Porsche didn't touch. They spread their wings out wide to adapt to each generation and change with the changes that happened. So it's pretty obvious why the brand ended up becoming one of the best and most popular car brands the world has ever seen. Porsche also even drove straight into the electric revolution and gave us the Taycan, a fully electric car that was launched in 2019. And although it's different, the performance is still as good as the rest. Let me tell you something really cool. The 2025 version of the Taycan Turbo GT is a car that can produce 1019 horsepower, and it has been recorded as the fastest electric production car to race at Laguna Seca. So to Porsche, electric cars and their normal cars are all the same thing. They will all have the winning formula needed to be the best of the best. Talking about the winning formula, let's now dive into Porsche's success with Motorsports and their iconic events. The truth about Porsche is that it's more than their fancy and unique cars, and its legacy is more than the amazing road cars it gives us. They're also about pure racing, and that have had so many great vehicles that have brought us so much success over the years that it can be considered as one of the best brands in terms of motorsports. Porsche has a record of 19 wins at Le Mans with their 917, 956, and 919 hybrid cars. The 917 won its first Le Mans in 1970, while the 956 dominated in the 80s era, and currently the 963 is continuing Porsche's winning legacy in endurance racing. And for their iconic events, it's obvious that Porsche focuses a lot on community events, which shows they're a brand that gives back to their loyal fans. Porsche launched the Icons of Porsche Festival in 2021, and it was held in Dubai. It was an event that hosted thousands of their fans, and it showcased the most brilliant Porsche cars in history. From the classic 550 Spider to modern-day eye-catchers like the Mission X concept. So yeah, we can say it's been a celebration of Porsche's past, current cars, and what they plan to do in the future. But apart from the Porsche Festival, there's also the Rennsport Reunion, which is seen as the world's largest Porsche fan gathering. And in 2023, it hosted 93,000 fans as they joined to celebrate 75 years of Porsche and 60 years of the iconic 911. So in terms of iconic events and motorsports, it's quite evident why Porsche is up there with the best of the best. So ladies and gentlemen, that's it, a deep dive into what made Porsche what it is today. From a small sawmill in Austria to hosting events with 91,000 fans and producing cars that everyone would dream to have. Ferry Porsche had a dream, and now his dream is what most car enthusiasts wish they owned. And the best part, Porsche is still evolving and growing with time, so we haven't seen the best yet from the iconic car brand. But what's your favorite Porsche? Drop a comment for us in the description below. But before you go, please don't forget to leave a like for us if you enjoyed this video, subscribe, and don't forget to share with your friends. See you next time.